We're gonna be adding one of the biggest, if not the biggest mod we've ever added to the Mustang. And what we're gonna be adding to the Mustang today is a brand new BMR subframe brace. And what also makes this extremely interesting is the fact that you're not gonna be able to see this at all. And this should make one huge drastic difference to the overall performance in the car when it comes to turning and handling. And we're gonna go into all the details, exactly what you should do in order to make this thing work perfectly the first time around. So Brandon and I wanted to make sure that this was going to line up perfectly before we start going ahead and just yanking shit off. This side is technically supposed to be for the driver's side, and the side we have over here is supposed to be for the passenger side. And you will notice what it's supposed to be for each side because the angles on the end that connects to the rear lower control arms will be different. The bracket that you're gonna have to remove is this one right here that connects to the rear lower control arm. As you can see, mine's a little bit different because I have an aftermarket one, but yours should look very similar, it connects in the same way. But there's a brake line bracket right here that we're gonna have to remove because one of the things we have to weld on is this section right here. And considering there's no hole at the bottom, this is my opinion, I think this is what it's gonna be, is where it connects the new brake line bracket so it doesn't hang so far down below where it starts scraping, ripping, and then eventually you have no brakes in the rear end of the car. No, 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 no! These sections right here, because this is the part that connects to the other part of the frame of the car, as well as this one right here. This is all a directional piece. You have to definitely make sure that you have it on the right side. One important note that you do have to cover that is making sure the entire car is on load. And I think one of the reasons why you have to put it on load is because if you don't, then you might start hearing clunking or the way the car twists under power might end up acting weird. But that's just my guess. In my head, it makes sense, but as explaining it, it doesn't really make any sense at all. Jumping into round two right now. My hair looks like Krusty the Clown at the moment because I haven't really done my hair all day today. But I do want to say though, dude, you look like Chuck Norris right now. You're looking good. I want to get a mullet one of these days. I want to try one out. You can see right here, Brandon and I actually had to add an extra plate on here because for whatever reason, the frame of the car and this frame weren't lining up correctly on this section. So we ended up adding this little plate right here to kind of give it a little bit more height. And as you can see, you'll see that there's a line right here that's a little jaggedy. And that's because that the heat on it wasn't cooling down at the proper temperature that we need it.
Stick welding's pretty hot. You got to work on, thicker metals. And I thought we'd be okay if we run it at some lower amperage. Being a little too warm for it kind of melted it. We have a good bond here, but the frame's a little thinner and we just blow a hole in it and then that becomes a safety concern for you.
End up getting one that actually is adjustable with temperature, so we're able to really cool it down and do it properly to make sure we, again, like what Brandon says, we don't blow any holes inside the frames. That's the last thing we want because now it becomes a safety issue. And before Brandon and I go ahead and start putting on the braces on the passenger side, and we knew that we had a little bit of an alignment issue, but we are going to make work because I cannot return this. We're also going to go ahead and go on the driver's side as well to make sure that the other brace lines up too. And this one's a tad bit different from the passenger side because the driver's side, obviously, as you can see right here, has fuel lines, and we're going to have to end up removing these plastic covers on here because without removing those, this brace will not fit on. So we're going to remove those, make sure this thing lines up good on this side, and if it lines up good here, we're going to force it to make sure it works good on that side as well.
So this isn't, an exact fit. We're running into some spacing here, that makes it real hard to weld, but we got a nice solid stack going there.
I'm honestly realizing too that with this brace is that it might be difficult to even put that plastic piece on. You can't just add the whole thing back on. You have to do it in sections. And if you were to add it there in the middle potentially, then it might give you a little bit more room. But that's the only spot I could really see it.
What I'm looking at is, you know, your fuel lines are already
Covered this from this.
tucked up in here. So if anything, you know, major were to hit this, it's got this protection. I mean, realistically, you're looking at almost an impossible chance of something bouncing up. But hey,
you never know. I had my dad hit an alternator one time and it like ping ponged through the bottom of his car. You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
But everything's all intact. Like, you pull on the damn thing, it's not going anywhere.
Oh, no, it's...
If it would have fell off, put it like Brandon. I'm not expecting perfection, like perfectionism. Perfection, best way I can describe it, perfection. Overall, I think he did a great job. As long as these things aren't moving and I can smack the crap out of them, pull on them, I know he did at least a good job enough to where they can hold up well. And right now I'm trying to take out this bracket over here for the brake line because the way that they're curved doesn't really work well in this scenario, because when you line them up, to kind of give you guys an example, you can see how low it sits. It's sitting below the gas tank, and we don't want that because, again, if it gets caught up on anything, we don't want this thing ripping out. So our plan is if we cut this bracket a little bit more than half, and then we drill a new hole, we can have it sit up higher to where it's now above the gas tank and it's not gonna pull on anything and it's less likely to yank. Another thing I wanna point out as well is I ended up bending these out flat just to make it easier to get it up on the side of the gas tank. So when you get under the car and you have it sitting on this bracket right here, all I have to do is just slide it up in there and not have to worry about interfering with anything else. Because when they were bent, you had to try to maneuver in between the gas tank and it was hard. But as you can see, just sliding it in there flat just makes it much easier. I'm excited. I've been waiting about 2 weeks for this already. Round 1 did not work. We got knocked out. Round 2, we ended up winning this thing. So let's finally go down the road and let's go see what it's like. Body roll in this. It feels like it's a lot more planted. Now, do I feel like it made the biggest difference in the world? Not really, but maybe as I start driving this thing a little bit more, I'll start noticing a difference. Kind of the same goes with lower control arms, for example, or even the pedal commander. I didn't really notice anything until like the first few days, I should say, of driving it. But this, it feels good. I definitely feel a slight difference when it comes to body roll.
It definitely feels solid, and I mean, that's kind of everything working though. I mean, coilovers. I feel like the brace probably stiffens it up a bit.
Lower speeds, not really. Higher speeds, definitely. I can feel it's definitely more planted. I feel like this kind of eliminated a little bit of the understeer I had on it originally. I'm driving like a complete asshole right now, but I just really want to know what it feels like. You feel it, right?
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of my Mini, how planted that thing was. I don't know if you remember.
Wasn't it front wheel drive?
It was, but dude, it was so planted. It kind of reminds me of that because I used to take those corners like just as fast.
Oh, I know. Joe does the same thing. I watched Joe in his little roller coaster 240 and that thing is just gripping. And it being an automatic makes it that much more fun.
Right.
Brandon, he's a big help. I'm gonna leave his Instagram down below. If any of you guys are looking to go get anything welded on your car or anything you would like to get welded, take this opportunity while you can to get a good deal out of him, because I'm telling you, one of these days he's gonna turn into a NASA mechanic. Thank you guys all so much for watching today's video, and we will see you guys in the next one.